Prime one-day delivery's fast. How fast we talking? We're talking yoga mats and fitness trackers delivered so fast you can kick off your routine tomorrow fast. We're talking weights at your door without really waiting fast. Water bottles and hydration backpacks fast and fast. Resistance bands faster than you could say feel the burn fast. More jump ropes just a hop, skip, and a jump away, aka fast. Whew, that was actually a good workout fast. Fast one-day delivery for all things fitness. It's on Prime.
Life is full of choices, but the choice between getting crispy chicken nuggets or a Crunchwrap Slider isn't one you'll have to make. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider at Taco Bell. All white meat chicken nuggets, breaded in tortilla chips, wrapped up, sauce and all, inside a slider-sized Crunchwrap. Choose from creamy chipotle or jalapeno honey mustard. Well, there we go. Life, still full of choices. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider. A brand new classic. Only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time and while supplies last.
Noble is a training brand built for everyday life, and the All-Day Knit is their most flexible shoe. With a breathable knit upper, it's designed to move with you. From workouts to long days on your feet to commuting or travel, Noble is offering 35% off your first order. Visit www.nobleproject.com and use code NOBLEAUDIO for 35% off your entire first order.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, one was a heavyweight drug dealer. The other, one of the top-ranking police officers in Texas. Why did their lives go in such different directions? We'll talk about the Brothers Ortiz from Campside Media and iHeartPodcasts. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us, private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy, host of Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hola, buenas.
So, Kevin, this is Monday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Thursday's show?
Well, on Thursday, we have a classic rewind. We're going back to season 2 of a classic multi-Emmy Award-winning series. It's Ozark, starring Jason Bateman and Laura Linney.
That's right.
And a couple of other future
and Julia
famous...
Garner.
Yeah, couple of people that we realized were heavy hitters. So, but that's on Thursday. Next week, what we will be talking about is the HBO series Neighbors. Quirky, mockumentary. Mockumentary sounds fake.
No, it's a documentary.
It's a documentary. And then on Thursday, one more classic rewind. We're looking at the original Jury Duty, because we will be reviewing later on season 2 of Jury Duty. Jury Duty presents Corporate Retreat. So That's what we got coming up.
Do you ever put on classic ones where we just shit on things?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it always good stuff?
No, it's usually something good, but, manslaughter, took a hit, happy face.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the bad hits.
He's not afraid to put those back.
I'm not afraid. People love those ones.
That's right.
I know.
Speaking of things that bring people together, I want to apologize to Kevin because I have been running in and out of his office all morning telling him what's been going on in this case that I'm watching in Ohio, this civil case involving Afro Man, rapper and comedian and Grammy nominee from the early 2000s. So this guy, Afro Man, he was the subject of a bad police raid. The police got a tip from a confidential informant that he had drugs and stuff in his house.
Oh, we've heard this story before.
So police came, knocked down his doors with their big SWAT guns, held his ex-wife and daughter at gunpoint, ripped out his security cameras, all this stuff. And of course, there was nothing there. They also, by the way, took $5,000. So he then proceeded to make a series of parody songs about the police, and he garnered a ton of publicity around it, and the songs went viral on TikTok. One of them was called Lemon Pound Cake because one of the officers staring at the pound cake on his kitchen counter as he walked by with his gun. He's made a bunch of
lemon pound cake.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
A bunch of really some of them are kind of inappropriate, but very, very deeply funny songs. And these cops are suing him, claiming pain and suffering and stuff. And so this trial is Wild. One of the cops said his marriage was destroyed because of all this, and the defense then put up the cop's ex-wife on the stand, and she was like, I don't know what he's talking about. That's not why I divorced him. Like, it's not.
Why did she divorce him?
Because allegedly he was the kind of cop who was making people he was going to arrest have sex with him before he, So it was allegedly. That was also, the only reason I know that is because Afro Man made a song about it. So anyway, it's wild. And I know there's going to be a verdict by today because the closing arguments were the day we taped this Wednesday. But like, I'll just tell people, if they have not seen clips from this case, it's a must look up case. It's a crazy First Amendment case. It brings up all these issues where the ex-wife was asked on the stand, have you ever heard the song Wet Ass Pussy by Cardi B? And she's like, yeah. He's like, do you think that song is true? She's like, no, that's just art. Like, that's what artists do. Like, it's crazy. The whole thing is nuts. Anyway, so look it up, Laura Bricker. It'll be your new favorite thing, I promise.
I don't know if anything could be my new favorite thing more than that mockumentary thing that we watch.
I knew you would love it.
I knew
you would love it.
Okay.
All right, Kevin. Should we talk about the thing we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Leading off.
This isn't surveillance. It's not part of an ongoing criminal investigation. Instead, Gabe is doing some historical reconnaissance. He's retracing the steps of a criminal he used to know. Not a bad guy. Just one who did a lot of things over a lot of years that weren't legal.
When Gabe Ortiz's brother was killed in 2023, the prominent Texas lawman had to deal with more than a murder investigation. He had to confront their different life choices. Faced with few prospects, young Gabe left town for the Air Force and the police academy. Meanwhile, his brother Larry stayed at home where his best opportunity was selling drugs.
I guess he wanted big brothers. And the big brothers that came in and knew that he was struggling and going through something, that was their chance to start him in the gang.
The game. Selling drugs. Running the streets. The thing is, Larry was good at the game.
While Gabe climbed the ranks in the Department of Public Safety, his brother climbed the ranks as a dealer and prison gang leader. But Larry had pulled himself out of the game to live a more normal life before being gunned down. The question lingers. How did the siblings who were so close as children end up on such opposite paths?
For years, Gabe believed he knew why. Believed he knew the reasons everything happened the way it did. And he believed he knew Larry. But everyone keeps secrets.
The podcast, The Brothers Ortiz from Campside Media and iHeartPodcasts, examines the lives of two men, bound by blood but living in distant worlds. Host Sean Flynn talks with the Ortiz family to learn why the brothers' paths diverged so widely and how they tried to connect despite living on opposite sides of the law. It's a story of how circumstance, choice, and the world around them steered the two men towards separate destinies. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from the Brothers Ortiz. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down review. So, Laura, what do you think about the setup and premise of this podcast? And, we sort of learn about their childhoods. The whole first episode is really, this whole podcast really is a biography. But what do you think of the ideas here and the framing of this story?
I think it's kind of like there was a story they used to profile a lot in one of our local papers about these two brothers in Portsmouth, and one was homeless and, died from alcoholism and was, had mental illness issues throughout their life, and the other one had a very different life. So it's always interesting when you hear about, two people from the same family and, that take such very different routes. Like, what happened to one that didn't happen to the other? What happened to one, that maybe gave him a leg up? So in this, you hear about Gabe, who's in the beginning, you're thinking Gabe is going to be the one who's off the rails. And he was off the rails until he goes to join the military. And then he goes from the military and ends up, getting into law enforcement. And Larry, on the other side, the other brother that is, left behind when his brother leaves. And you're kind of wondering, like, what happened? What was different? Well, the parents get divorced. And so, the dad moves out. There's like somebody's having an affair. And, Larry ends up having a very different path. And so I think it's always like, what one thing could have been different, or could nothing have been different? Could this just be who these people are? So I think that set up from the beginning, that question of like, what happened here? How did this happen? How do you relate when you're in law enforcement and your brother has been involved in the criminal justice system and is, gangs and drugs and everything like that. So the premise is interesting.
Toby, I'd love to hear from you because I was listening to this podcast and we have an older brother and younger brother, close-ish in age. I have 2 sons. They're very different paths in life, and nothing was different for the 2 of them. They experienced all the same stuff growing up, living in the same town. Their parents got divorced when they were both little. And part of me is isn't this just because siblings are different people? I wasn't sure about the framing, especially as the podcast sort of reached its end. And I'm not even sure we ever really got to that answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you frame something where one brother's a cop and the other one's a criminal, my expectation was that there was going to be some kind of situation in which the cop brother had to make a decision about something. And that is not what this is at all. They barely intersect. And when they intersect, it's just for this very small thing. I mean, the cop brother's very stand up, Gabe. So he's not going to do anything to help his family in any improper way. So I'll be interested to see what you think, because I just kept waiting for something to happen. This just seems like a story of 2 siblings from a family whose lives didn't turn out to be exactly like each other. It doesn't feel like it's that unusual that something like this would happen. So again, it's what if one of them had been a librarian and the other one had been a race car driver? Would we be listening to something like that? So for me, the whole one's a cop and one's a criminal, I was waiting for that to play out somewhere. It seemed like there's moral quandaries all over the place. And in fact, there was no moral quandaries in the slightest. It was just these 2 people living fairly separate lives in basically the same area with different, ways of going about their business.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, we know, up front, that it's not going to be a true crime mystery, right? We already know that Larry's dead, and the host, Sean Flynn, tells us that straight up. And so, I mean, we are kept in suspense about, the finer details of what went down and how he dies. But I know what you're saying. You anticipate the kind of scene where, De Niro and Pacino meet in the restaurant in Heat, where, we're going to have some kind of, very big dramatic standoff. And you're right, that just never happened in real life. So our expectations maybe are perhaps too high because of the setup. But, I mean, this is a very different kind of story, right? It would be different if the 2 of them were stalking each other and, one's undercover or whatever like that. But this is a different kind of story. Instead of a murder mystery, it's a moral mystery. It's a social mystery. It's an examination that, you're right, is common. But that's one of the reasons why it's worth exploring, I think. It's very universal. And while the lines are drawn that, yeah, right, maybe one's a librarian and the other's illiterate, and, there's some irony there.
He said race car driver, Kevin. He didn't say
illiterate. I know, but that's a better pairing.
Interesting.
Yeah, one's a race car driver and the other, bikes to work or whatever. They're like opposites. They're all often opposites. But we also have one that's died, right? And so there's an examination of that life. So there's a bit of melancholy, there's a bit of regret, and a bit of reflection. So as far as the setup goes, I 100% get it. And that might have been the first thing that intrigued producers about the setup. You've got one of the highest ranking police officers in the state of Texas. You got the lawman and the outlaw, right? So that's intriguing, and the reason why you might give it a first look. And like so many other things that we say, there are stories that don't live up to, the log line, what they appear on the surface, and it ends up coming down to, can you then tell this story in a different way or an interesting way? Sometimes they can, and sometimes they don't. Right,
but the log line is usually written, the log line is there for the pitch, but then the log line is also there for PR reasons. And you can rewrite the log line. And we do it all the time at NHPR. We start a project, we think it's going to be one thing, and then later it's all right, we got to change this log line because it's not accurate anymore. We don't want to
Well, it's not inaccurate. You've got one guy who's a cop, one guy, it wasn't an exaggeration.
Right.
But if you're talking expectations, there's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not, I listened to this podcast and it felt just more like a straight biography to me. These people talking about Larry's story and... at the beginning, Laura, we get a lot of childhood stuff, right? And we hear about how the parents, went from being kind of ne'er-do-wells to becoming very religious and everything changed. And then Larry left to pursue this opportunity and yada, yada, yada. Do you think that it was interesting to hear about, the details of the lives of these two men?
I'm not going to say interesting. I think the house party scene for me, that was like one scene where I was like, okay, how is this going to set up here? Because you hear about kind of some typical teenage stuff and the parents are away. And one brother, the one who becomes the cop, answers the door and talks to the cop. And the other brother runs off into the woods and doesn't come back.
They're still hiding. The cops leave and they finally start. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, bro, the cops. So I'm like, this is our house. We live here. Why are you running from the cops? He's like, I don't know. We just saw the cops and we ran. I'm like, get your ass in the house.
So it's kind of foreshadowing, like, okay, this one's going to be the one who cooperates. This one's going to be the one on the run. So I think they tried really hard. But when I was listening to Toby talk earlier, I really relate to that because I think I was waiting for like the big moment. And this just felt like a very slow telling of this story of this family. But if Larry hadn't been murdered, what would have been the hook here? So.
And he wasn't murdered because of crimes he committed.
No,
like
that was the...
Didn't you think at the beginning, like, he was going to be murdered by another drug dealer? Or, I mean, he was, but like that he was going to be murdered because of something he was actively doing.
So, it was interesting to hear about their childhood, then how it played out when Gabe went off into the military, and then the sister is like following Larry around, and they're doing all sorts of shit because they're free range kids, because it's that time in history. Like, we're going to climb on roofs while our parents aren't here and just do whatever, because that's what we do. But I think based on the setup here, I was expecting a little bit more of some sort of a trauma background in the lives of specifically Larry. And the parents get divorced, but I guess that wasn't something that to me seemed like the precipitating event that would lead him to just go down the path that he went down, other than that maybe he wasn't getting supervised as much as he once was because his parents were preoccupied with other things and his big brother wasn't around to check up on him.
I do remember the house being full of smoke, and all you can smell is marijuana.
When I asked Gabe about his childhood, this is the first thing he mentioned. He wasn't complaining or judging. He was just explaining how, with some regularity, he would hear loud, happy voices at night, and he'd crawl to bed to see what all the hoo-ha was about.
If we stepped out of the room, mom or dad were like, hey, get back in your room.
There's this interesting thing that happens, Toby, where obviously Gabe is telling this story through the lens of adult Gabe, right? And I thought when they were talking about how when their parents became super religious, kind of all of a sudden, that for a while they liked that better because kids like structure. And I was like, I think an adult would say that as a kid, I liked the structure, but I don't know if the kid at the time is like, Mom and Dad, I really prefer the structure that you've built for me here by not letting me listen to Slayer. Do you think that the perspective...
Or wanting to, but
exactly. Yeah. Do you think that the perspective on the religious story, like the fact that was another turn in their lives and that was another turn... I'd love to hear what your take is on the religious parents first. But second, do you think it's fair to sort of hang a narrative based on somebody remembering how their childhood was and kind of making it in some ways fit the story that they're trying to tell?
Well, I can see, like, when he says we got some structure, like if that means we're going to eat dinner consistently between 6 and 7 and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I mean, definitely. Like if your family isn't really functioning well, then I could see suddenly having that kind of family structure would feel good. And it eliminates some of the anxiety and stuff that you would probably feel as a kid. There's something just for me, the one detail that stuck out at me is the dad sneaking, like watching the 700 Club in secret, which seemed
like it's Cinemax.
Like
so
me with General
sad
Hospital.
And like misguided. Yeah, it's like, why aren't you watching late night Cinemax in secret? But I think the whole thing about this, right, is that it's not to denigrate their upbringing or the fact that like almost anybody's story has these interesting aspects to it in developing who they end up being as an adult. But you're basically listening to this with the expectation that there's going to be some payoff to all of it, right? So you're kind of focused on all this stuff, which is not that unusual. Like none of this stuff to me seemed very unusual at all. Like parents suddenly becoming religious and becoming strict, or there being a party and one kid like can talk to the cops, the other one takes off in the woods. Like, I don't know how many parties I've been to when I was in high school that exact fucking thing happened.
It's very
so it's just
normal.
like it's a normal thing. So there's all these fairly normal things, and it's like, at what point does something go from being universal and relatable to just being like sort of mundane and normal?
Yeah.
And then why am I listening to episode after episode after episode about this? The idea being that there's going to be some payoff in the end when these two like upbringings like kind of come together, or there's some kind of contrast or something, but it just literally never happens. There's never a moment at which they're in the same place making decisions that are counter to each other or demanding something of each other that the other one can't give or anything like that. It's just these two lives that they happen to be related but are otherwise fairly separate. It's one of those things that the actual act of listening to it was not as frustrating as the feeling I had when it was over.
Right.
And I was like, I listened to this whole fucking thing, and this is this is like the payoff.
Yeah.
It's like one of those, like a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. Like I totally had that feeling at the end, because it's not badly done, but it's just, there's no payoff. So it's just like, wah, 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 at the end. So,
you know where you will get payoff, Toby? Join our Patreon.
Patreon. There's a lot of payoffs. Yeah.
Well, I feel like Larry, like I got left behind.
Yes.
And everybody went on without me.
Yes.
Yeah. One way to support the podcast is to join us on Patreon.
We're in the business section.
Go to patreon.com/partners in crime media. You'll get even more of us, like at the Crime Writers on After Show. This week, Toby's going to fill us in on his very eventful journey in finding an apartment in Valencia, Spain. He had been living at this long-term Airbnb, and now he's got a crib.
Got a crib.
How do you say crib in Spanish?
You say it crib.
Crib. Okay, excellent. Other things that you get exclusively at Patreon include Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. The latest book that Toby is talking about is The Lumumba Plot. It's a very intimate conversation between Toby and Livy Burdett, where they get to talk about this book. You also get Married with Podcast, our advice podcast, and Something's Off. Rebecca and Mel they've just wrapped up their coverage of the Corey Richins case.
That's right. And we're also looking forward to other cases that are coming up, including the Kelsey Fitzsimmons trial, which is slated for this week.
Yeah. Laura Bricker has her Bricker scale. If you join us at that level, you get one more exclusive podcast. It's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, in which Laura solves mysteries, including how did that dog in New Hampshire get so good that it won the agility contest at Westminster, and why does my dog just, like, he won't stop whining? He literally walking into the studio right now.
As we speak.
God damn it.
He heard you say dog.
I know, and he's okay. Anyway, Laura, maybe you could solve that mystery while this mini Bernedoodle just sits on my feet.
I've been trying to train my cats, and one of my cats, I think I've actually trained it to sit now. Only because it wants treats, but when I say sit, it will sit. So
okay.
I could be at the cat agility before you know it.
So could Briscoe, by the way, because I trained him to eat Nerds Clusters as a snack. And that sugar gives him some energy, man.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, so good for him.
If you join us at the Let's Do What We Do level, you get episodes of Crime Writers on early ad free. And if you are a deep diver, you're an official sponsor of Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club, and you get to watch him record his next discussion. Toby will be talking about This House of Grief. Another way to support us is join us at our Amazon storefront, where you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
Oh, you know what I got, Kevin? I got some tiny little spray bottles of OxyClean to bring on our vacation with us, because every time we go on vacation, I get some stains. I bring home my clothes, then I spray them with the big bottle of OxyClean, let them sit for a while. But if I spray them while we're there, that part will all be done, and the stains definitely won't set.
That's right, and we'll look really hot with our fake tans.
That's right.
Toby, can you tell us what your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations are?
Well, this is going out to you and Rebecca, just starting off. With the Modern Advantage inflatable travel pillow with adjustable extra bottom support. Bottom support on a pillow? That's weird. Neck pillow for chin and head stability, prevents neck pain, plain pillow, and then just the letter F.
Wow.
And just the letter extra bottom? Is that like, are you supposed to sit on it?
It's unclear. It doesn't go into much detail.
Kevin can use a neck pillow. Kevin can use a neck pillow successfully. I cannot, but if you give him a neck pillow on an airplane, he's done. He's absolutely done.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
They don't work for me. I feel very uncomfortable.
I think it's more the position of like, can you lie down as opposed to where your neck is.
Yeah.
Do you have any other recommendations?
How about the Bubble cigarette blower kit with a realistic cigarette pack and mini bubble wand with solution? Fake cigarette toy makes cigarette bubbles for RELA, relatives.
That's what we need. That's what we need. A kid's toy.
Start training them, man.
Start training them. Just like those candy cigarette gum things.
Brought to you by Marlboro.
Remember they used to have the candy cigarette this gum when we were growing up?
Yes, and it had like a powdered sugar, so you could,
It would be puff and the powder would
Bubbles cigarette thing. Okay.
Yeah, wow.
All right. All sorts of things that you could get at our storefront. It's Amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
Kevin.
Yes.
Do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Caitlin Tidwell and Rachel Balabanoff. Bless you.
Caitlin and Rachel, thank you so much for your support on Patreon. We cannot make this podcast without folks like you who are willing to pay for the extra content we make and thereby helping us continue to do our work. Because making this podcast isn't free. We love making it, though. So, Kevin?
Yes.
Does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to fade that music out.
Prime one-day deliveries fast. How fast we talking? We're talking tissues and hot tea fast. Feel better meds fast. Relief at your door fast. So you can actually breathe out of both nostrils fast. Like I just ordered it and it's already here fast. Fast one-day delivery to feel better sooner. It's on Prime.
So Kevin.
Yes.
Who's our next sponsor?
Yeah, this podcast is sponsored by Quince.
Oh, Quince.
Yeah, these days it's all about choosing quality over quantity, especially when it comes to a wardrobe. So if a piece isn't made well and versatile, well, is it truly worth having? And that's why so many people love Quince. Okay, now I know that the Quince people spent a lot of time working on this copy.
Yes.
And they came up with the thing about quality over quantity.
Yes.
But if you met Rebecca Lavoie, you would get both.
You would get both.
Quality and quantity, because she loves shopping at Quince so much.
I do love it so much.
Can you tell us a little bit about the last thing you purchased from Quince?
Well, Kevin, I have the Luxe Baby Cashmere Cable Knit Cardigan, which you have seen me wear. I have it in 2 colors, and you have seen me wear them, I don't know, like 50 times in the last month. I love wearing them. I don't even wear like a tank top underneath. It's so soft and so cute. Looks great on camera, looks great at work, looks great with jeans. I love these cardigans so much. They are a wardrobe staple, and I will wear them for years to come.
Yeah, you know the thing you're forgetting, though, is that Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories to cut out the middlemen, so you're not paying for a brand markup or those fancy retail stores. It's just quality clothing.
Yep. So right now, go to quince.com/crime for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to wear it and love it, and you will. Now available in Canada, too.
Bonjour, hi.
Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Life is full of choices, but the choice between getting crispy chicken nuggets or a Crunchwrap Slider isn't one you'll have to make. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider at Taco Bell. All white meat chicken nuggets, breaded in tortilla chips, wrapped up, sauce and all, inside a slider-sized crunch wrap. Choose from creamy chipotle or jalapeno honey mustard. Well, there we go. Life, still full of choices. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider. A brand new classic. Only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time and while supplies last.
So thinking about what Toby was saying before the break, I kind of felt the same way about this podcast, that I know so many siblings like this. In fact, one of our good friends, who I will not name, had parents that became really like fundamental religious when they were kids. He and his sibling went very separate ways in their lives eventually and are still kind of like coping with that fallout now. And to me, like their story in many ways is way more interesting than this story, because she kept going down the life of the religious path and he didn't. And I think that was like a big differentiator. But again, also, siblings are different people. But I have a question for you, Kevin. Larry blamed Gabe. Thoughts?
Did he really?
Yes.
Larry blamed Gabe.
Larry
I'm sure
told
he was very
Gabe
young.
it was his. No, but they were adults and they were meeting up at that thing. He was like, "This is your fault because you left."
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, I think it's pretty reductive to say it's like, well, this happened because the parents got divorced, or, you know, I mean, I did Larry Sr. bring Larry Jr. to the recruiting office too, and like tell him, you know, if the Coast Guard was there
together
instead of the Air Force, like how things would have been. It's, you know, sort of life does take you in different directions, and there's a nature versus nurture thing about this too. Like, what opportunities were put in front of you? Does that set you on a different course? I mean, we know that young Larry was crushed.
He left me. And I said, Who? Who left you? He said, Gabe left me. Mom, Gabe left me. My best friend. He said, I miss him.
I think we can make a safe assumption that Gabe's life would not have been rewarding, or certainly wouldn't have gone anywhere like it did if he stayed when he was young and became a welder, or whatever life path he went on. But I don't think we're clear on whether Larry's life would have been any better if Gabe stayed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But part of the common thread between these siblings and other siblings is that the older one often leaves first. And the younger one, when you're the first to leave, you don't really think about what that means for life back home without you, whether you're going to college or you're going in the military. You're thinking about your own thing. You don't have to, you know, look at the empty place at the table every night at dinner. And so that does change your perception on your relationship with him and what life means to you. And I think that it's, you know, it's easier for the first to go because they're not thinking about that. You know, the extinguished candle doesn't care about the darkness.
Right. So, Laura, let's talk about Larry for a second. He had, and I hate to use the word typical, but it actually read to me that way, sort of a typical trajectory of somebody who gets into crime as a young age, where he kind of like grew out of it eventually, right? Like, that's not atypical at all. We hear about it all the time. Your brain changes in your 30s or whatever, and you know, the rate of recidivism at that point goes way, way down because their brain changes and they become different people. But also, we never get the sense here that Larry was unlikable, right?
Right. And I think that was sort of the thing that they did really, I think, a good job with was, you know, can you be a career criminal and also be a good person? Mm-hmm. And most people are like, absolutely not. I'm like, okay, there's often a lot more gray there than you think. Somebody at one point said he's not like the savage beast who's out there selling drugs to your grandma. Like, even when he dealt drugs, he was benevolent. He was, you know, a teddy bear. He was nice. So you kind of hear about the people talking about how he's just super chill.
He'll take your Groupon.
Yeah. You know, he's chill. And then he finally kind of turns his life around after he gets, this was horrible, like hit on the head by like a piece of steel, has this like horrible accident. And then he's like, you know what? He's been in and out of jail and prison throughout most of his children's life. He's trying to get back on track, have a relationship with his kids. He gets this like $1.2 million payout for getting hit on the head by the chunk of steel. Thinks he's going to do well, put the money into savings and puts the $300K into his investment account. And then things take a turn again. And, you know, drugs are always there. So he does get sucked back in. But at the same time, you hear about how he's really like a family guy. He's actually on this family trip when he gets killed. So you hear that he has a heart, he has a conscience. And I kind of laughed when that person was like, he's the kindest drug dealer you're ever going to meet.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's completely plausible. I mean, I think that hearing from his kids was very interesting. Obviously, there's one kid who didn't participate for good reason, I think. But the podcast doesn't make any, like, his brother even doesn't really make a lot of judgments about whether or not he's a good person or a bad person based on what he did in his life, which is wonderful. It's also wonderful that they don't really raise the question of, are you a bad person if you're terrible with money, which he clearly was. And again, being good or bad with money very often isn't a nature or nurture thing. I mean, it's more of a nature thing. It's very often a brain thing. It's impulsivity. Like the same kind of brain that might lead you down a path for like a quick buck by selling drugs could also lead you down a quick path where if you have $1 million, you have no idea what to do with it and you just blow it all. Like it's the same kind of brain chemistry. And I do like that the podcast doesn't make moral judgments about that. I think that that's very refreshing. So let's talk about the murder. So Toby, the murder is absolutely bizarre. Not what I was expecting. Larry takes his kids on vacation. They rent this beach house, and his son, Larry the Third, is sort of taking up the family business, shall we say, and hanging out with people that he shouldn't be hanging out with, and goes out for drinks, comes home, and then people follow him home and murder his dad. So what did you think about that when you heard it? Because it really didn't tie to the premise of what we were hearing before.
Yeah, I mean, I again, the way sort of the reporting and the storytelling around the murder, I thought was good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you do get a very good sense of it. And at least what I walked away with it is sort of the randomness for Larry, that he had lived this life, and the thing in which he ends up being killed, it's something he has absolutely nothing to do with. Like, his kid goes off and is a little kind of loose with money and sort of being showy, and attracts attention, and that attracts these people who want to rob him, and it turns tragically.
He's just like holding the wall with one hand, and he has one hand over the gun wound because he has on a white shirt, so you can see the gun wound. My dad falls to the ground, like face forward.
As far as sort of being the payoff on this, like, two brothers, two different paths thing, it really has almost nothing to do with it, unless you're trying to draw some conclusion about the sins of the father or whatever. Like, that in a way is sort of absolutely counter to the basic premise of the whole thing,
right,
which is that
right.
It doesn't really matter who your parents are, because you can take these different paths. Like, even the stuff that we've kind of talked about nature versus kind of nurture, or the changing situation in which you find yourself with your parents, or sort of brothers counting on each other, whatever, like, it doesn't really get explored a ton. It gets mentioned. It's like, this was the situation. But as far as I can remember, there's no trying to kind of unpack that. And that's fine. Like, they don't have to. But in the end, it's kind of like, well, what's really the point? I don't get what the point is. And then I think there's this whole sort of thing that's supposed to be kind of cathartic about Gabe gets to put the cuffs on the guy who they pick up for the murder. Like, it's like barely even, it's not really a mystery. I mean, they figure out who he is. But again, it's just like another thing that kind of happens without any kind of build up to it, or any, you realize it's a symbolic gesture, and it's sort of a sign of the respect that Gabe has on the force. But does it really pay off on the premise? And it doesn't play out.
I just want to say, for the record, I think allowing there to be a bit of showmanship for the sake of someone's closure during an arrest is really inappropriate. And I understand, like, he wanted to do it, they let him do it, whatever, but like, that guy has rights, and the whole thing where he's being accused of a murder, he hasn't been convicted yet, and
he's been convicted.
No, and at the time of his arrest, he wasn't convicted.
Who gets convicted at the time of their arrest?
So don't you think it's like kind of prejudicial to do that whole thing? It's just
his rights were not violated by someone switching the handcuffs.
I understand. To me, making a show of somebody's arrest is never appropriate. That's my opinion. It made me very uncomfortable. But that's Gabe, and I don't think Gabe is an unlikable guy, right, Kevin?
No, I mean, I think I found him to be, somewhat thoughtful. A lot of times we get like a cop on one of these things, and they're all braggadocious about like how cool it was to take people down and how rough they were. I mean, he talks about his career in law enforcement, but he's not judgmental. I mean, who I really like in this podcast actually is the host.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was Gilbert King when I heard, when I first started listening. So it's Sean Flynn, no relation, but I feel like he's a great writer. It sounds like he's just conversational enough to like deliver that throwaway line or underline something kind of profound, or something like we want to think deeper about without underlining it in magic marker for us.
I think this is it, yeah.
We've stopped in front of a beat-up little bungalow on a street of other beat-up little bungalows. This one's a greenish yellow, the color of an overboiled egg yolk, and there's a fat stripe of mold near the foundation. We're staring at it as if it's a clue, as if some grimy secret might come leaking out of it.
I thought it was really good, and so the strength of the podcast for me is in the storytelling and how we get to look at these characters and to be guided as sort of like, think about this, think about that. And I think not only was he a good narrator, I think he was a good producer of the story.
Prime one-day delivery's fast. How fast we talking? We're talking yoga mats and fitness trackers delivered so fast you can kick off your routine tomorrow fast. We're talking waits at your door without really waiting fast. Water bottles and hydration backpacks fast and fast. Resistance bands faster than you can say feel the burn fast. Or jump ropes just a hop, skip, and a jump away, aka fast. Whew, that was actually a good workout fast. Fast one-day delivery for all things fitness. It's on Prime.
Life is full of choices, but the choice between getting crispy chicken nuggets or a Crunchwrap Slider isn't one you'll have to make. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider at Taco Bell. All white meat chicken nuggets, breaded in tortilla chips, wrapped up, sauce and all, inside a slider-sized Crunchwrap. Choose from creamy chipotle or jalapeno honey mustard. Well, there we go. Life, still full of choices. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider. A brand new classic. Only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time and while supplies last.
What if you could color your hair without worrying about the damage? With K18 Molecular Repair Mask, you can. K18 Hair has been breaking rules and records since day one, delivering soft, strong, bouncy hair, even if you bleach, color, and use heat. The patented K18 peptide is the greatest discovery in hair history. It reverses damage in 4 minutes, deep within hair's innermost layers. Before K18, real, lasting biomimetic repair didn't exist, so they went ahead and invented it. For breakthrough results, the K18 mask gets molecular. My hair has never felt this healthy. You'll flip for hair like new, too. Shop at Sephora or get 10% off your first purchase with code PODCAST at K18hair.com. That's code PODCAST at K18hair.com.
Noble is a training brand built for everyday life, and the all-day knit is their most flexible shoe. With a breathable knit upper, it's designed to move with you. From workouts to long days on your feet to commuting or travel, Noble is offering 35% off your first order. Visit www.nobleproject.com and use code NOBLEAUDIO for 35% off your entire first order.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the new podcast, The Brothers Ortiz? Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for this podcast?
So I'm a thumb sideways. This podcast just didn't do it for me. It was very slow. The action didn't really propel it in a way that made me eager to listen to the next episode. But I'm going thumb sideways because it isn't to say this is bad. The production quality was good. The writing was, smooth. They had all the people that were relevant to this story. I think for me, there just wasn't enough there to make this interesting in a way that felt like this was going to be a compelling enough story to sustain a whole podcast. And like I said, it was beautifully done production-wise. It was nice to listen to. But at the end of the day, I was just like, nothing really stood out to me of something that I was like, wow, that part was super interesting. So I'm a thumb sideways on this.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for the Brothers Ortiz?
So I'm a thumb sideways too, and I agree with a lot of what Laura said. I mean, I give it credit for all the kind of like podcasty stuff that it does well with the writing and the production and all that stuff. Like it's definitely like a strong like professional effort, in my opinion. It's the story, and the premise, I don't think this is a spoiler, is that there's two sons. One's a cop and one's a criminal. And you spend a hell of a lot of time listening to a lot of details about their childhood and their lives and stuff. And you're willing to hang in there because, the storytelling's pretty good, even though what you're hearing isn't particularly exciting or in my opinion, unusual. But for me, there wasn't really a payoff after all of this. And so I liked it much less when it was over than I did while I was listening to it, just because at the end there was no there as far as I was concerned. So that's why I'm thumb sideways, but I hope they do something else and I'll be psyched to listen to that. Hopefully they'll pick a better story.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up on this. If you're waiting for a story about how Larry got killed, then you're going to be disappointed. If you're waiting for a story about how these two lives intersected in a very dramatic law enforcement way, you'll be disappointed. But if you're interested in a more thoughtful look at two lives and how people ended up making different decisions for themselves and finding themselves in different situations, I think that kind of story here was told very well, very thoughtful. It's different. I think in other hands that it would be, a lot more boring, at least to me, than the rest of the panel thinks. And there's also this theme of sort of the intergenerational curse, what is passed down from parent to kid and grandkid, and how much of that is destiny and how much of that is DNA and how much of that is circumstance. And so while we have, a man here who is reflective of what happened in his life and the choices that he made and the things that he couldn't do for other people, that's the kind of podcast that this is. And so for what it is, I thought it was done very, very well. I'm a thumbs up.
I'm a thumb sideways on this. Not going to repeat everything Laura and Toby said, although I agree with just about everything they said. This podcast was framed in the wrong way, and it felt like it was framed in such a way that it could make like a really good HBO limited series, but it would have to be scripted because you'd have to add more tension, add more drama. The one brother who's a cop would have to be pulled into an investigation that involved his brother, like something along those lines, right? That never really happens, but you have a good pitch now, I think, for something scripted. And that's how this kind of felt to me. The much more interesting story here that's in the story, but it's not framed around it, so you just hear facts relating to it, is what's going on with the fathers and sons in this family, right? They have the Larry, and Larry kind of situation. And what happens sort of at the end of that three-generational thing is it's really a big event that I think would be the interesting thing to kind of put this around. And our protagonist, Gabe, the cop who's telling the story, he wasn't involved in that because he left. And sort of looking at that story of the fathers and sons things through his eyes, I think, could have been really interesting. I just want to say, like, for the record, I love in-depth stories about regular people. And to me, these are regular people. This isn't the worst of the worst. This isn't the best of the best. These are just average people who are, because of circumstance, because of poverty, because of many of the factors that a lot of people in this country experience, have a life that looks different than my life or looks different than Joe Schmo's life or whatever. And I love the kind of stories where you really get into the place where you realize that everybody is interesting. I really do. I just don't think that this was built well for that. Even though it was well reported, it sounded good, well produced, the framing really kind of killed it for me in the end. It was what keeps it from being a thumbs up. Because like Toby said, when it was over, I was way more disappointed than it was. Even halfway through the final episode, when it was over, I found myself kind of sinking. So yeah, thumb sideways for me for the Brothers Ortiz. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week. A British man is recovering after he was rushed to the hospital for emergency oxygen after his skin turned blue. Turns out it wasn't his O2 levels that were off, it was just dye from his new bed sheets. Tommy Lynch of Derbyshire awoke from a nap on the navy blue sheets he got as a gift. His buddy said he looked like Jake Sully from Avatar, so they sped off to the emergency room in Staffordshire. He says he was whisked past the other patients who thought they'd seen a ghost. When a nurse tried to take some blood and wiped his arm with an alcohol swab, the blue dye smeared off. The medical staff had a laugh, but Lynch said he was mortified. The situation could have been worse, however. He could have thrown those sheets in the wash with all of his white boxer shorts. So, panel, it's a laundry lesson learned. What is next for this oddly colored man? Laura Bricker.
I think it is a cheesy poof-inspired facial. After he's eaten a few too many of those little, cheese doodles.
His fingers are orange.
What do you think, Toby? What's next for this oddly colored man?
So first of all, I want to know what brand sheets those are so I can avoid them. And B, I think he just eats like one of those little white hats.
Oh,
like the Smurfs.
Yeah. What do you think, Kevin? What's next for this guy?
I think he's going to join Blue Man Group and catch ping pong balls in his mouth.
He could do that. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, how lucky are they have universal health care in England? Because if you're American and you went to the hospital with this, you'd be charged for the ER visit anyway.
Yeah.
Like the nurse preparing for that shot would get a code to your insurance company, or you'd be charged anyway. So at least this guy didn't have to pay a big check after all of this. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
This one is for Toby. It comes to us from our longtime listener, Laura Dopkus, and it is inspired by something that happened in Spain. So here's what happened. Benito and Concho, two burrowing owls, accidentally left Florida as stowaways on a cruise ship, and they somehow ended up in Spain. Yes, Spain. What followed was a year-long effort involving international partners, permits, quarantine, and a carefully planned flight back to the U.S., which happened last week on March 12th, so that these owls, who hopped a ride to Spain from Florida, could be released back into the wild in Florida.
They're an invasive species in Spain.
Well, these cute little owls, they're very cute. There's a whole movie, Hoot, about the burrowing owls in Florida, starring Jimmy Buffett, that I am a fan of. So I am a fan of the burrowing owls and everything. But yeah, I thought that was fun. I was like, Toby, you could have been in the middle of an international owl scandal over there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You know how Toby feels about owls.
He thinks they're harmless.
He thinks they never do anything bad. Owls.
Yep.
At
Owls are
all.
innocent. They're innocent
owls. They
innocent
never
little
hurt people.
creatures.
They don't make anybody bleed from the head. All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you to pitch any kind of animal to be their cat of the week, how can they find you online?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found?
I'm at Tuiball NH on Blue Sky, at Tuiball603 on Instagram, where you can catch my FIAS photos and videos. So you can see the weirdness that goes on in Valencia for 3 weeks in March.
What about you, Kevin? How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. I'm on Instagram, I'm on X, and I am on Blue Sky. And also, please listen to Something's Off on YouTube. Please follow Crime Writers everywhere at Crime Writers On. We are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, all of it. Get episodes early and ad-free, and everything else we make at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the wonderful Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also pose for photographs with 2,695 pounds of marijuana and a SpongeBob piñata. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Multi-Emmy Award winning series, Ozark, starring Jason Bateman and
Laura Linney.
I was going to say, and Jennifer, what's her name?
Ruth.
Yeah.
Garner.
Okay, just say we'll leave it right there. Starring
Jason Bateman, Laura Linney.
Yeah. Okay. Starring Jason Bateman and Laura Linney.
Partners in Crime Media.
Life is full of choices, but the choice between getting crispy chicken nuggets or a Crunchwrap Slider isn't one you'll have to make. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider at Taco Bell. All white meat chicken nuggets, breaded in tortilla chips, wrapped up, sauce and all, inside a slider-sized Crunchwrap. Choose from creamy chipotle or jalapeno honey mustard. Well, there we go. Life, still full of choices. The new Crispy Chicken Crunchwrap Slider. A brand new classic. Only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time and while supplies last.
Walmart Express Delivery can get what you need delivered in as fast as an hour. Whether it's baby formula when you're down to the last scoop, pet food before the bowl runs empty, batteries for a dead remote, or a last-minute gift, it is handled. Try Walmart Express Delivery today and get free delivery with promo code EXPRESS. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum. Subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids.
We only met a month ago. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.